You know, there's a strange moment in life that almost everyone encounters but few people recognize. It's the moment when everything feels stuck. Not dramatically, not loudly, but quietly. You keep trying to shift your reality, align your energy, manifest something new, or simply feel better, and despite all the effort, nothing seems to move. You listen to meditations, you make vision boards, you visualize, you journal, you try to stay positive, you attempt to do the inner work, yet somehow you end up feeling more exhausted than transformed. It's as though the universe is gently whispering, "Stop. You're doing too much," but the mind interprets it as, "Try harder." This opening section is an invitation to pause inside that whisper. For so long, we've been conditioned to believe that change only happens through pressure, strategy, and relentless action. The idea that stillness could be more powerful than effort feels almost backward, even irresponsible. But if you look closely at your own journey, you may notice a subtle truth. The breakthroughs didn't come during the moments you were trying the hardest. They came in the spaces between your efforts. They came when you were walking or staring at the sky or sitting in silence with no agenda whatsoever. They came when you weren't gripping your reality with anxious hands. This script begins by acknowledging that many seekers, especially those drawn to manifestation, spirituality, and self-evolution, have reached a point of spiritual fatigue. You've consumed countless teachings, followed dozens of techniques, tried to maintain perfect energetic hygiene. And underneath all that effort lies a quiet ache, a fear that you're somehow doing life wrong or manifesting wrong, or not being high vibe enough to call in the reality you desire. It becomes a subtle but heavy pressure on your chest, the pressure to fix yourself, upgrade yourself, evolve yourself, and shift realities with sheer will. The truth is, the spiritual path was never meant to feel like a performance review. The more you try to micromanage your frequency, the more it sinks into the very tension you're trying to escape. The more you force clarity, the more confused you become. The more you try to manifest faster, the more delayed things feel. Effort becomes friction, friction becomes resistance, and resistance becomes the invisible wall between you and the timeline you're reaching for. This is where the power of doing nothing enters, not as laziness, not as avoidance, but as a quantum recalibration. This introduction sets the stage for a profound shift in understanding. The idea that the universe responds less to what you do and more to what you allow. When you're constantly pushing, you're actually vibrating at the frequency of lack, urgency, or fear. But when you soften, truly soften, something remarkable happens. Your field expands. Your nervous system unclenches. Your perception widens. You move from a contracted timeline into a fluid one, where reality reorganizes itself with surprising ease. But this shift cannot be accessed through force. It can only be accessed through release. In this opening, we explore why human beings have such a complicated relationship with stillness. Doing nothing feels uncomfortable because it confronts us with our unused inner space. That space, previously filled with distraction or effort, suddenly reveals our feelings, our doubts, and the deeper truths we've been too busy to face. Yet, paradoxically, that inner space is also the doorway to alignment, creativity, clarity, and the intuitive guidance that leads to genuine transformation. There's a softness required here, a willingness to let go of the identity that says, "I must push harder or nothing will change." This identity was built by survival, not consciousness. It was taught to you by environments that rewarded control, productivity, and consistency even at the cost of your internal peace. But the path of quantum manifestation is not the path of survival. It's the path of resonance. And resonance does not arise from pressure. It arises from openness. In this introduction, we begin by guiding the listener into a calm awareness of their present state. Not the state they wish they had, not the energetic persona they try to maintain, but the real, raw state they are actually in. This presence is the doorway. It is the beginning of the shift. You cannot step into a new reality without first acknowledging the one you're standing in. The tone of this section reflects that gentle return to self. It holds the listener softly while validating the complexity of their internal experience. It reminds them that nothing is wrong with them, nothing is broken, nothing is delayed. They are simply standing at a threshold, the threshold between over-efforting and true alignment, between seeking and receiving, between the noise of trying and the silence where everything actually changes. As the introduction concludes, the viewer is meant to feel a subtle release, a loosening of tension they didn't realize they were carrying. They begin to understand that this journey will not ask them to try harder. It will ask them to trust deeper. It will not urge them to add more steps to their routine. It will ask them to remove the ones that disconnect them from their natural state. It will not demand discipline over their thoughts. It will guide them toward spaciousness in their awareness. The first shift is internal, a softening, a letting go. a remembering that not every transformation requires force. Some transformations require only space. There is a subtle intelligence beneath everything you experience, an invisible architecture that responds not to force but to frequency. When you try to manipulate your life through sheer willpower, you unknowingly narrow this architecture into a single possibility. It's like staring too hard at one point on a vast horizon. The more intensely you focus, the more everything else disappears from view. You believe you're creating clarity, but you're actually collapsing the space where new outcomes could emerge. This is the hidden physics of forcing. The more tightly you grip reality, the fewer pathways remain available. Many people don't realize that manifestation isn't about demanding a specific result. It's about aligning yourself with a field of infinite probabilities. In quantum physics, coherence is what allows energy to stabilize into new patterns. Coherence requires openness, spaciousness, and non-resistance. But resistance, whether emotional, mental, or energetic, creates noise. Noise scrambles the signal. And when the signal is scrambled, the universe can't deliver what you're calling in, no matter how badly you want it. This is why effort alone doesn't work. You can visualize perfectly, affirm confidently, and act tirelessly, yet still feel like you're pushing against an invisible wall. That wall is not life working against you. It is the vibrational interference created by the very act of trying too hard. Your desire is clear, but your field is intention. And the universe always responds to your field, not your words. Imagine a pond. When you throw rocks into it, the surface becomes chaotic. Ripples colliding, waves splashing into each other, patterns breaking. Now imagine dropping a single feather onto that same pond. The water receives it without conflict. The feather glides. This is the difference between forcing and allowing. When your mind is in a state of overwhelm, the energetic pond of your reality becomes disturbed. Nothing can reflect back to you clearly. But when the mind becomes still, even for a moment, the quantum field becomes receptive. This section explores why the mind confuses force with progress. The human nervous system is wired for survival, not expansion. When you feel uncertain or stuck, your survival instincts activate, urging you to do more, think more, fix more, control more. The body interprets manifestation challenges as threats. Your heart may want alignment, but your biology wants predictability. And predictability is often found in pushing, planning, or problem-solving, even when those efforts generate more resistance. Over-efforting collapses possibility because it pulls you out of resonance and into fear-driven action. Fear reduces creativity. Anxiety reduces intuition. Overthinking reduces synchronicity. And without creativity, intuition, and synchronicity, the pathways through which new realities emerge begin to shut down. You start living in loops instead of timelines, repeating familiar thoughts, familiar emotions, familiar outcomes. One of the most profound truths in quantum manifestation is that possibility expands in direct proportion to your ability to relax. Relaxation is not passive. It is a state of trust that opens invisible doors. It allows your energy to become coherent, your intuition to sharpen, and your inner field to stabilize. When you soften your internal state, the universe finally has room to work with you. It begins rearranging variables you cannot see, connecting opportunities you cannot predict, guiding you through synchronicities you could never invent through effort alone. Yet softening feels counterintuitive to many people. They fear that if they stop trying, everything will fall apart. They worry that without constant effort, they'll lose momentum. But momentum born from force is not true movement. It's friction disguised as progress. True movement flows. Feels like clarity, like expansion, like ease. It doesn't require emotional strain. It doesn't require self-punishment. It doesn't require frantic energy disguised as motivation. When you force reality, you operate from the assumption that the universe isn't already on your side. You operate from the belief that you must push to be supported, labor to be guided, or hustle to be worthy of receiving. But the quantum field does not respond to worthiness or effort. It responds to coherence. It responds to the frequency of openness, availability, and neutrality. Neutrality is often misunderstood. People assume it means not caring, but neutrality is actually a state of vibrational clarity. It means you aren't distorting your desire with fear. You aren't drowning your intuition in noise. You aren't suffocating possibility with overfocus. In neutrality, your field becomes quiet enough for subtle guidance to reach you. You begin to notice nudges, signs, unexpected alignments, tiny currents pointing you toward new timelines. This is why the physics of letting go is so powerful. When you release the tension around a desire, you increase the coherence of your energy. When coherence increases, manifestation becomes almost effortless. You begin to feel differently, not because the external world has changed, but because your inner field has shifted into a receiving state. And once your inner field shifts, the outer world must follow. Letting go does not mean giving up. It means releasing the compulsive need to control the timing, the form, and the journey. It means trusting that the moment you set an intention, the quantum field began reorganizing itself around that signal. Your job is not to force the rearrangement. Your job is to stay open enough to let it complete. Stillness is not stagnation. Stillness is a recalibration point. It is the moment when old patterns dissolve and new pathways can finally be accessed. When you understand this, boredom becomes sacred. Quiet moments become portals. Empty space becomes a creative force instead of something to escape from. And the more you lean into this spaciousness, the more life responds with clarity, synchronicity, and unexpected opportunity. In this section, the viewer is gently guided to see that forcing is not strength, it is misalignment. True strength lies in remaining open, spacious, and receptive even when the mind wants to tighten. The old self relies on control. The new self relies on resonance. One collapses possibility, the other multiplies it. The shift begins when you realize you do not need to push to create. You need only to align, to open, to allow. When you stop disturbing the water, the reflection becomes clear. When you stop collapsing the field, infinite timelines return to you. And when you stop trying to force the universe finally has space to meet you. There is a strange and often overlooked dimension in our human experience, one that many fear or dismiss because it appears empty or unproductive. It is called boredom. Yet within this so-called emptiness lies a hidden portal, a place where the ordinary mind falls silent, and the infinite possibilities of life begin to hum quietly beneath the surface. Most people rush to fill these moments with distraction, scrolling endlessly, speaking endlessly, doing endlessly because the discomfort of stillness feels unbearable. But the truth is that boredom is not a problem to fix. It is an invitation to a higher form of presence, a gateway through which reality can shift without effort. When we think of manifestation, we often imagine active steps, visualizing, scripting, planning, taking inspired action. All of these are tools, but they are only effective when the inner field is coherent. Boredom, paradoxically, is one of the most powerful tools for creating coherence. In the gaps of quiet, when the mind is not racing, the nervous system is no longer vibrating with tension. In this subtle recalibration, intuition emerges, synchronicities appear, and timelines that were previously hidden begin to open. It is as if the universe waits for you to stop moving so that it can rearrange itself around you. The difference between the frantic, pushing mind and the still, receptive mind is enormous. The frantic mind believes it must control every detail, schedule every outcome, and push every step forward. It experiences reality as linear, constrained, and stubborn. The still mind, on the other hand, perceives reality as multidimensional, fluid, and responsive. In boredom, in moments of quiet surrender, the still mind begins to notice patterns it had never seen, to hear guidance it had never listened for, and to feel shifts it had never trusted. This is why the moments when we appear to be doing nothing are often the moments when the most profound changes occur. Consider the concept of allowing in manifestation. Allowing does not mean passivity, laziness, or inaction. It means softening the grip of the ego and letting the field respond to your intention without interference. Boredom creates a natural container for this process. It removes the clutter of constant activity and mental noise. When you are bored, you are forced to confront the inner landscape of your consciousness. Your desires, your fears, your attachments, and the stories you tell yourself about why you cannot shift your reality. But within this confrontation lies liberation. You begin to realize that the resistance to boredom is, in fact, the resistance to your own expansion. The hidden portal in boredom works like this. When the mind ceases its habitual grasping, a subtle energetic recalibration occurs. Neural pathways that were overactive slow down. The nervous system, long held in tension by constant striving, begins to relax. This relaxation allows you to tap into subtler frequencies, intuitive nudges, synchronistic alignments, and creative insights that previously felt inaccessible. It is as if the universe has been waiting for you to stop vibrating at a desperate pitch so it can finally reach you at the frequency of alignment. Boredom, in this sense, is a sacred vacuum, a space pregnant with possibility. Yet stepping into boredom is not easy. Most of us have been conditioned to fear emptiness. We are taught to define ourselves by productivity, achievement, and constant movement. The ego labels boredom as failure or inadequacy, but in reality, it is a profound tool for transformation. When you can embrace the discomfort of boredom, you create the necessary pause for your consciousness to catch up with your desires. You move from chasing reality to co-creating it. You move from a timeline dictated by effort to a timeline shaped by resonance. In boredom, contrast becomes clear. You notice the difference between the old self, always striving, always pushing, always anxious, and the new self, calm, spacious, and aligned. The old self fears that doing nothing means losing control. The new self understands that surrender is the gateway to mastery. You realize that the very thing you feared, emptiness, is actually the fertile soil in which new realities grow. Just as seeds require darkness and stillness underground before sprouting into light, your desires require the quiet of boredom to germinate into manifestation. This section also explores the concept of energetic detachment. Detachment does not mean indifference. It means removing the emotional tension around outcomes, softening the need for certainty, and allowing the universe to guide you toward unexpected openings. Boredom naturally encourages this detachment. When there is nothing to distract you, you face the subtle currents of your own vibration. You feel what is aligned and what is not. You sense where resistance is hiding in your thoughts, beliefs, and habitual actions. And in noticing, you can release. Synchronicity, that mysterious orchestration of events that feels like magic, often emerges in these spaces. When you stop forcing, the universe begins to respond in ways that are intelligent and unexpected. People, opportunities, and ideas appear without effort because your energy has become a receptive magnet. You begin to experience life as fluid rather than fixed, guided rather than controlled, unfolding rather than fought. In this way, boredom is not a void. It is a portal into the multidimensional flow of reality itself. There is also a deep emotional aspect to embracing boredom. Initially, it may feel uncomfortable or even frightening. The mind resists stillness because it fears loss, stagnation, or irrelevance. But if you stay with it, something remarkable happens. You begin to access a subtle joy, a quiet curiosity, a sense of peace that was previously obscured by effort and distraction. You realize that life does not require you to push constantly to feel alive or to create. Presence itself becomes a powerful act of manifestation. The more you practice entering this sacred space, the more you can carry it into active moments. Even in movement, the energy of spaciousness can remain. This allows you to act without attachment, make decisions from clarity rather than panic, and navigate life with a sense of flow. Boredom is not an endpoint, it is a bridge. It connects the frantic self with the aligned self, the over-efforting self with the surrendered self, the limited timeline with the expanded one. Finally, the power of boredom lies in its paradox. The more you resist it, the more life feels stuck. The more you embrace it, the more effortless life becomes. This section teaches the viewer to see boredom not as a failure, but as a sacred opportunity. To do nothing is not to waste time. To do nothing is to create the space in which everything changes. The quiet, the pause, the stillness, they are the invisible levers of transformation, lifting the weight of the old reality and revealing the possibility of a new one. By the end of this section, the viewer is gently guided into a new understanding. The still moments, the quiet gaps, the spaces of apparent boredom are not empty, they are pregnant with potential. They are the laboratory of reality, where the old self dissolves and the new self begins to emerge. They are the canvas on which the universe paints your desires, without the interference of effort, without the distortion of tension, without the limitation of control. In embracing boredom, you step into the hidden portal where reality begins to shift naturally, effortlessly, and beautifully. Now that we have explored the subtle power of letting go and the hidden portal within boredom, the question arises, how can this be applied in our daily lives? How do we shift from struggle to surrender without feeling lost or passive? The answer lies in cultivating practical methods that anchor the philosophy of non-forcing into lived experience, bridging the gap between theory and practice. These methods are not complicated or rigid. They are soft, gentle, and designed to realign your energy rather than add more pressure. They remind you that reality responds not to frantic effort, but to subtle presence and resonance. The first practice begins with awareness. Simply noticing when you are forcing, pushing, or trying too hard is a profound step in itself. Pay attention to the moments when the mind tightens, the chest constricts, or the shoulders hunch in unconscious tension. Observe without judgment. Awareness transforms resistance into conscious choice. Once you recognize that you are in a state of over-effort, you can intentionally shift your energy. You can breathe, soften, and allow. This awareness is like stepping back from the canvas of your reality. Only then can you see where the brushstrokes of control are distorting the picture. Another essential practice is micro-surrender. This is the art of releasing tension in small, deliberate ways throughout the day. It can be as simple as letting a thought pass without grasping it, pausing before reacting, or relaxing the body for a few deep breaths. Micro-surrender interrupts the habitual grip of effort, creating repeated opportunities for your nervous system to recalibrate. Each moment of conscious release signals to the quantum field that you are ready to receive. Over time, these small acts of letting go accumulate into a powerful shift in vibration, transforming not only your inner state but also your external circumstances. Softening rituals are equally transformative. These are intentional practices designed to create spaciousness in your daily routine. A softening ritual could be a morning meditation, a slow walk without distraction, journaling without agenda, or sitting quietly with a cup of tea. The key is that these rituals are gentle, unhurried, and free from the pressure of productivity. They train the body and mind to experience stillness as nourishing rather than threatening. In these rituals, boredom is welcomed, and the quiet spaces between thoughts become fertile ground for insight, intuition, and synchronicity. Awareness of contrast is another powerful method. When you observe the difference between the old self and the new self, you create a mirror that clarifies where you are aligned and where you are resisting. Contrast frames reality. It shows you where the tension exists, where the force is being applied, and where energy is stuck. By acknowledging the friction without judgment, you give yourself permission to release it. This conscious recognition of contrast allows for subtle shifts to occur naturally, guiding you from the contracted, over-efforting self to the expansive, surrendered self. Integration of intuitive pauses is also vital. Life moves fast, and the impulse to act immediately can override subtle guidance. By introducing intentional pauses, you allow intuition to surface. This could be a few seconds before making a decision, a mindful breath before responding to a message, or a moment of stillness before starting a task. These pauses act as recalibration points, giving your energy a chance to realign. Over time, intuitive pauses become a habit, training you to act from clarity rather than compulsion, and enabling synchronicity to flow more naturally into your life. Another method is the practice of neutral observation. This involves witnessing events, thoughts, and emotions without over-identifying with them. When you observe without attachment or judgment, you create an inner environment of calm and spaciousness. This neutrality is not indifference. It is a conscious vibration of alignment. It signals to the universe that you are ready to receive support without interference. The field of reality responds to this clarity. Opportunities, insights, and alignments arrive more easily because your energy is no longer entangled in unnecessary tension or attachment. Movement and embodiment can also be used to support surrender. Gentle practices such as stretching, yoga, tai chi, or mindful walking help release stored tension from the body and nervous system. The body is an energetic instrument, and when it is tight or constricted, the mind follows suit. By moving with awareness and softness, you allow energy to circulate freely, supporting the state of receptivity necessary for effortless manifestation. Movement in stillness is a paradoxical but highly effective method. Your body is engaged, but your mind remains spacious, allowing both action and surrender to coexist harmoniously. Visualization, when practiced from a state of surrender, becomes exponentially more effective. Instead of visualizing with effort or desperation, imagine your desired reality with curiosity and ease. Feel the sensation of alignment without clinging to the outcome. As we come to the close of this journey, it becomes clear that the most profound shifts rarely occur through effort. The old habits of pushing, forcing, and over-controlling may have served a purpose once, but they no longer lead to true transformation. What emerges in their place is a quieter, more potent power, the power of surrender, stillness, and spacious presence. By stepping into this way of being, you allow the universe to move around you, not against you. You create an invisible alignment that rearranges reality in ways you could never orchestrate with force alone. This is the essence of letting life meet you, rather than demanding that you chase it. Everything we have explored, the hidden intelligence in boredom, the recalibration of the nervous system, the subtle art of micro-surrender, and the cultivation of receptive states, is pointing toward the same truth. Transformation does not require struggle. It requires openness. It requires trust. It requires a willingness to stop trying so hard and to notice the subtle currents of your own energy. When you soften into your natural state, you release the tension that has kept you bound to repetitive timelines. You allow the invisible scaffolding of reality to rearrange itself in your favor. And in that rearrangement, miracles, synchronicities, and new possibilities flow effortlessly into your experience. This shift is as much about identity as it is about outcomes. The old self, the anxious, striving self, is rooted in the belief that life is something to manage, control, or fix. The new self, The aligned, surrendered self understands that life is something to feel, respond to, and co-create with. It notices rather than manipulates, it trusts rather than fears, and it flows rather than forces. By practicing stillness and allowing, you step into this version of yourself. The contrast becomes undeniable. The heaviness of effort is replaced by the lightness of alignment, the tension of control is replaced by the expansiveness of openness, and the struggle of striving is replaced by the grace of effortless manifestation. As you integrate these practices, you may notice a subtle but profound sense of liberation. You no longer need to micromanage every outcome or push against the currents of life. Even moments of boredom become sacred spaces, opportunities for realignment, and gateways to unseen possibilities. You begin to understand that your value and your power do not come from effort or achievement, but from your presence, your awareness, and your resonance with the greater flow of existence. In this state, life stops feeling like a battle and begins to feel like a dance. A responsive, unfolding, beautifully orchestrated dance that moves at its own perfect rhythm. The final invitation then is simple yet radical. Trust in the intelligence of the field. Release the compulsion to force, control, or chase. Step into the quiet spaces, the pauses, the moments that once felt empty. These are not voids to be feared but fertile grounds to be embraced. Allow yourself to feel, to breathe, to notice, and to align. When you do, you will find that reality does not need your effort to change.